matter how many people are there and how many people in the city aren't interested and don't want to know, then it doesn't look like such a big accomplishment. Do you think we're going to wake up this country? Do you think we're going to affect any kind of a change at all?
I don't think so, Bill, but, I applaud the people who go out there and try. I don't try anymore because I've found that people are satisfied with the information that they receive, reading the paper in the morning, listening to Dan Rather on the news at 5 o'clock, and then watching Wheel of Fortune at 7:30. And most people are satisfied that they get about all they need to know from that kind of information. It's discouraging because there's some great human beings that would like to make a change, but I just have to say that I am not an optimist at this point.
Well, I'm slowly getting to that not an optimist point also, but I have to keep trying. Every time I look at my little daughter, I can't stop trying to make this a better world because I know that if I fail, she's going to be somebody's property. And that's what's coming. I'm convinced of it. Everything, all the research that I've done shows me that instead of going forward in our evolutionary path, we're at a point where we've reached the highest pinnacle of all man's striving throughout history, where with the establishment of this nation, man actually became a sovereign king in his own right, able to walk in a divine state of grace on this earth that God gave us. And no time in history had that ever been true before. And it still isn't true today in any other nation on this earth except this country, the United States of America. And what I see in the future is a step backward, back into slavery, in a totalitarian socialist world government. And all of these things that are happening around us, I see leading us right into that, including the election of Mr. Rhodes Scholar Clinton here is just a continuation along that path.
Correct in that, and I wish there was something we could do, but I'm not sure what it is. I certainly applaud your efforts to continue on and try and do something, but I've more or less given up myself. If you could show me the path of how we could affect the numbers of people we would have to do in the short time we have to make a difference, I would certainly rally behind you.
Well, time is short. It's so short that people call me and they write me letters, and one woman wrote me a letter, and it was about 6 pages long, and it was all about her being upset with me because I had said that most Americans are stupid over the radio, and I use that term quite often because I found that most Americans are stupid, and the definition of that word is mentally crippled. In many cases, it's not their fault that they're stupid, but nevertheless, they are. And she was so upset with that word that I knew that I had reached her and had made her angry enough that maybe she would begin to look at it, even though she was voicing great displeasure about it. You see, it's my theory that if I say Americans are stupid over the radio, only the stupid Americans will get angry when they hear it.
I would prefer to say that they're ignorant.
Well, it goes far beyond ignorant, John. Ignorant is when you don't know about something. You've never had an opportunity to learn. Nobody taught you. That's right. Stupid is where you have the information and you don't know how to put it together. You don't know how to think originally. You believe what you're told all the time without question. And that's where most Americans are. They don't question anything. Nothing at all. And that is really bothersome to me.
They have a free country, they believe they have a democracy. Most of them don't even know the difference between a democracy or a republic.
That's correct, and they don't understand that the increased use of the word democracy is leading us into socialism, because democracy is just another word for socialism. It's where everybody has a vote, and the majority get their way, and they always vote themselves all the benefits until there's nothing left, and a dictator rises up to take over and clear everything out. And that's always where socialism leads, and that's where we're going right now. John, what are you engaged in now? What kind of projects are you doing now?
Really, no projects. I fly at 727 for a cargo airline. We have a contract out of Miami. We run fertilized chickens to Valencia. Other than that, I'm working on my garden as usual. You know, when you're here, I like to have the greenest lawn on my block, and I like to do all kinds of gardening projects. Other than that, I'm quite heavily involved in computers. I got involved in computers a couple of years ago, and I have a PC, and it's mostly to write. And also, my wife has a actor and actress casting business. We cast extras here in Las Vegas for the movies that come from Hollywood, so I computerize your business, and I mess around with that. But that's about the extent of my extracurricular activity.
Well, what do you foresee for the immediate future? You got any predictions for us?
No, as a matter of fact, I'd have to agree with a German interviewer who came over here and said that I was a great researcher, but a horrible prophet. Several times I said, absolutely within a year, some information is going to come out, and then I said in 1991, some information was going to come out, and it just never seemed to happen. So,
well, some information is always coming out.
It's always coming out, but I meant something like
something big,
gigantic revelation, and I've always been wrong, so I've quit making any kind of predictions. I just sit back and watch with great interest.
Well, I don't think anything like that's going to happen until they're ready to actually put the chains on our legs, and then they'll cause so many things to happen and so many revelations to come out, and most of it will be deception and lies that everybody will be so confused they'll be totally deactivated. They won't even be able to think, much less act. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, I just want enough time to call all my friends and say, I told you so. And also, when the ground is uphill, I want to be one of the first ones to go because I want a lower bunk and I want to get the blanket confession.
Well, I understand they've already got my name on the door. So, that is if they let me get that far. John, I'm going to slip one in on you here. Who is Lars Hansen?
Lars was a supposed researcher who came and lived at my house as was a carpenter. Did a lot of projects around my house in about 1988. Spent 3 or 4 months here, and left. I think he lives in Florida now. He was greatly interested in the Kennedy assassination. He had made a tape which purported to show that William Greer, the driver, turned around and shot Kennedy. We showed that tape quite a few times. I went back and actually paid Robert Groden $200 to see the original of that tape, which then I since found out was not an original. It was a copy of the Time Life film. I went back and actually paid Robert Groden $200 to see the original of that tape, which then I since found out was not an original. It was a copy of the Time Life film. I went back and actually paid Robert Groden $200 to see the original of that tape, which then I since found out was not an original. It was a copy of the Time Life film. And it didn't make it any clearer. Anyway, Lars promoted that tape, and then, maybe the end of 1989, changed his mind that, no, he didn't feel that Greer did shoot Kennedy, and he retracted all his statements, and I think he lives in Florida now. Back to Lars, I have a great deal of respect for people who change their minds based on new input and are willing to admit that they made a mistake. I can't remember how many times I've done that. What I disagree with is people who change their minds and say that they never believed that in the first place. In Lars' case, he says he never did believe that Greer shot Kennedy, but for those people who really said one thing, like a particular aspect of aliens were real and flying saucers are real, and who have come to believe that maybe that's not the case, have the guts and the moral fortitude to get up and say, yeah, I was wrong, here's what I believe now. I think that takes a great deal of courage.
Well, that's, I don't know how much courage it takes, but that's certainly what I've done. I think that I was intentionally shown documents when I was in the Office of Naval Intelligence that convinced me that extraterrestrials were real. And I really believed that. And when I first came public, of course, I told everybody what I saw in those documents. And I told them I didn't really know the reality of it, but that's what the documents said, and I had no reason to question those documents. But John, when I first really began doing real research, and quit believing what I saw and what people told me, and really started digging into it, the first thing that I found when I did a computer search of documents in a library for anything about extraterrestrials or other species from other planets or anything like that, it popped out a document from 1917, which was the text of a speech given by John Dewey to the Japanese Imperial delegation headed by Viscount Ishii in New York City. And the first thing out of his mouth, the first sentence in the speech was, and I printed this in the appendix of my book, was, quote, "Someone once told me that the best way to unite all humanity in a one-world government and do away with wars forever is if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet," unquote. And that was like somebody hit me between the eyes with a sledgehammer. And I felt that all through my body. I was just shaken to the core. And here I was looking at the evidence that somebody had thought of doing this as far back as 1917. And I knew instantly that they had the technology to make us all believe it, if they wanted to. And then I began going back and looking at, when did all this start? Why, John, it started the minute that President Truman signed the United Nations Treaty, and the Senate passed, and Truman signed the UN Participation Act. And the first man who reported flying saucers was an ex-intelligence officer flying in a plane up in Washington who saw, or says he saw, 9 disc-shaped craft come out of Canada and then go back in the same direction. And he described them as inverted saucers. And of course the press picked this up and called it flying saucers. Now if you go back like I did and research the newspaper headlines of today, they were all talking about the United Nations being the salvation of mankind, and that all man would come together in one world government and there would be no more wars. And then you see Hollywood begin to crank out all the flying saucer movies, and what's the most famous one? No, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
No, sure.
The classic of classics, and it's about a man from another world who comes here with a message of peace, and he's surrounded by guns, and he's shot, and the message was simply that we have to have a one-world government and do away with guns and arms and national boundaries, and that's been the message ever since. Have you ever attended a Stanton Friedman lecture?
No, I haven't.
I'll have to send you a tape. In his lectures now, he includes a portion about how the world has to come together and unite as one, and we have to get rid of all weapons, and that the world should be ruled by a council of wise men. It's the same old utopian story that the Illuminati's been preaching throughout the history of the world, and it's impossible to bring about because man himself is flawed. What do you think about all this?
Well, I think you're correct. I just disagree with the one world government. I'm not going for it myself.
Well, it can't be good because we're being manipulated into it instead of being allowed to be a participant in what it's going to be or how it's going to come about. We're being herded like a flock of sheep or cattle. Which reminds me, I've stopped calling people anymore. They're sheeple in my vocabulary, at least the ones who aren't awake yet. The ones who are awake are heroes in my eyes. I laud them, I appreciate them, all my efforts are in their directions, and hopefully if we all work together we can wake up more of the sheeple and turn them into real people, I hope. John, if there were something that you would, well, let me put it another way. inside each and every one of us, there's something that we want to do more than anything else in the world. What is that for you?
Bill, before I die, I want to be able to go to Carl's Jr. and drive up there and order a Carl's original hamburger and not have them ask me if I want a piece of